Hourglass. An hourglass or sun timer or sun clock is a device used to measure the passage of time. It comprises two glass balls connected vertically by a narrow neck that allows a regulated flow of a sand from the upper to the lower one. The exact origin of the hourglass aren't clear, but it's generally accepted that it's way widely adopted in Europe by the end of the High Middle Ages around 1500 AD. The hourglass was prepared over earlier water clocks, ducks, because their suns were unaffected by the rocky motion of an ocean-bound ship. Hourglass were an early dependable and accurate measure of time. It is indeed one of the many inventions that's very important and has a unique role to make our work easy and to calculate time in an easy way.
Until the late 13th century, people who suffered from bad eyesight basically had to accept the fact that they would be like that for the rest of their lives, because at that time they still haven't found a cure. But by the 15th century, Florence, Italy, which was the center of eyeglass production during that period, had produced one of the highest quality glasses, using two convex glass discs held together by a handle at the center. And if one were to use an eyeglass, they would have to hold them in place by their own hand. Or, if they were to use the other version of the eyeglass, where the glasses were riveted together in order for the handle to grip the noses. The adoption of the concave lenses in glasses was a significant development in the 16th century. Nearsighted persons can see clearly using concave lenses, which were designed specifically for them. And by the end of the medieval period, eyeglasses had evolved to include bone, metal, and leather mountings in the frame.
Spinning wheel. Spinning wheel is an apparatus for spinning yarn or thread with spindle driven by a wheel attached to a crank or treadle. The spinning wheel is an invention that helped people to turn plant and animal fiber into thread or yarn, which they use to create cloth. The spinning wheel was probably invented in India, though its origin are obscure. Some researchers says that it was invented in China and then spread from China to Iran, Iran to India, and then India to Europe. The spinning wheel was also known as the walking wheel, as it was operated while standing. The spinning wheel transformed the production of yarn, which increased productivity and led to establishment of a thriving middle-aged textile industry. In turn, these helped creating a perfect environment for the beginning of the Renaissance. Finally, the spinning wheel helped elevate the economic and social standing of a medieval woman.
What is a mechanical clock? Many various timekeeping devices were utilized in the early medieval period. Almost all of these technologies were adapted from ancient times. So, with little to no innovation in timekeeping devices, mechanical clock was invented in medieval period. Water clocks, candle clocks, and the use of astrolabes to determine the time was used before. And sundials were among the traditional timekeeping devices or techniques were used during the period. New methods of timekeeping were discovered during the High Middle Ages, as were new instruments that gives different purposes in timekeeping. An oscillating mechanism indicates the passage of time, while an escapement counts the beats in the mechanical clock. The mechanical clock is less accurate than astronomical systems for determining time, but it may be used at any time or of day or night, and even in inclement weather. So what are the uses of mechanical clock and their purpose? Mechanical clocks were first used in monasteries, the beginning of time. They were commonly used to keep track of hours for daily prayers, to assist monks in calculating solar and lunar eclipses, and used to accurately estimate feast days in different places. Mechanical clocks began to build in secular enterprises and buildings such as castles, courthouses, and council chambers around the middle of the 15th century. And also, mechanical clock has the ability to measure time in different ways that were not possible before. And because of it, our lives were changed forever. We can now we can know the time we live today.
Knights in shining armor. Knights armored men on horseback were the most iconic invention of Middle Ages. The arrival of Norman knights in 1066 signaled the start of medieval period. And over the next 450 years, their armor and weapons were ingeniously updated to make them more powerful and less vulnerable fighting machines. The armor covering the head and the neck include a visor, which was the detachable piece of armor where protected the face and the eyes. In the 13th century, the helmet was called the bassinet, which had a skirt of mail called a ventil, which protect the neck, and the part of armor covering the body were the breastplate, which covered the chest, and the backplate, which protect the back, and the folds, which were rings of armor, which were attached to the breastplate and protect the hips, abdomen, and the lower back. The parts of the armor covering the arms and hands were the bisig, which were the small round shield placed to the mail at the shoulder to defend the armpit. The rear brace for the defense of the upper arm, the bum brace for the defense of the lower arm, and the gloves called gauntlets, which had ringed metal plates over the finger. The part of the covering the legs and the feet were called sabatons, which foot armor, and consisted to riveted iron plates on the boots. Greaves protect the calf and the ankles. Pollens protected the kneecap, and cosses protected the tights. They were helmets completely covering their heads, and their faces couldn't be recognized. So another medieval invention, heraldry assigned each knight his own unique heraldic arms device painted on his shield, banner, and sword cut to instantly identify him in the battle. It was designed and developed to as protection against a new and even more lethal weapons that were introduced during the violent period. The armor provided essential body protection from the various weapons which were used in battle, including the two-handed sword, bows and arrows, crossbow and battle axe, mace, dagger, and lance.
Heavy plows comprise of three functional components: an asymmetrical plowshare which breaks the soil horizontally, a coulter which breaks the soil vertically, and a mold board which turns the chopped sods aside to produce a deep furrow. So the heavy plow's main advantage on thick clay soils comes from the mold board. The first use of the plowshare is that it flips the soil, allowing for better weed control on heavy soil in wet areas, as well as the assimilation of agricultural waste, green manures, animal waste, and other elements into the soil. The second use is that the mold board plowing form high back slopes which help heavy clay soil drain more efficiently. So in both the rainy and dry seasons, the slope enabled better yields. So crops would grow on the crest even in the wettest season, and crops would grow in the furrow even in the driest season. The heavy plow's third use is that it handles the soil with such force that no cross plowing is required, saving labor time. So as a result, the heavy flow encouraged food production, and as an outcome, population growth, specialization of function, urbanization, and the growth of leisure by allowing for greater field drainage, accessibility to some of the most productive soils, and minimizing production time.
Another invention that came from the Middle Ages that changed the world significantly is paper money. So paper money did not originally came from Europe but in China, and it was used there during the 11th century. But in Europe, it was implemented to use in the 16th century. So the reason for the usage of paper money was to reduce the uh, precious metals to be used or carried by a person during travels, and it is very hassle for the person to carry many coins or precious metals while traveling far distance, no? And it is one of the major invention that really help people nowadays in the future, no? Because paper money has much bigger values than coins, and it is very convenient to carry around while traveling.
Compass is a primary device used for locating directions on the surface of the Earth.
The compass was invented during the Han Dynasty in China between 2nd century BC and 1st century AD. It works by detecting and responding to the Earth's natural magnetic field. How to use compass? Hold the compass horizontally in front with the direction of travel arrow pointing away from you. Use this arrow to guide you to your destination. The invention of this device made it very possible to determine a heading when the sky was overcast or foggy, and when landmarks were not in sight.